Welcome back. I'm back home. I have my computer, my microphone, my tacky background, and things are back to normal. So, if you watched the last 2 weeks, thanks for actually watching because they're very stripped back and they were their own thing. This is back into the flow. I had two things on my mind today, one of which I'm probably going to wait till next week, although I do like these to be not 100% off the cuff, but authentic to what's actually on my mind this week. So, if I'm not thinking about the second topic a lot next week, maybe I'll just do a separate video on it because I think it's interesting and important. But the topic that I'm actually going to talk about today is the importance of what's the way to say it? Culture and context when it comes to mental health. So I'll give you the multiple sentence version of what I'm trying to say as a title for this. But I was recently in South Africa for about 17 days, 16, 17 days, visiting family. Um, my wife and I have a ton of family over there, and so we were visiting. Um, and it's far away. Plane tickets are expensive, so we made it a long trip and did some other stuff while we were there. But one of the things that I love to do when visiting new places, and I'm not well traveled from a country sense, but I've been to a lot of places across the US, and if you've also traveled, you will know that there are things that feel similar and things that feel different. And one of the things that I love to do in new places is to shop local books. I have recently, just in the last couple of years, so I say I love doing this, but it's relatively recent, maybe within the last 2+ years. I've always had an intrigue and fascination with different things. Like, not like, hey, I like this thing, but like things that are different than what I know intrigue me. And in the last couple of years, I've tried to start buying books written by people in the area that I'm at. So, uh, for interest, for example, I would not want to buy a book about South Africa written by non-South Africans. That could be interesting, but I really want to hear about the people's experiences there. Now, I say that, and I'll add a caveat. I'm okay with it being like history books. So, uh, I think, brought home 14 books, which is crazy. 13 of them I picked out. So, there you go. And one of them was written by someone who's not a local there, but it was in partnership with universities, and it's a very specific history over 3 years from there. That one I'm fine with because it's very focused there. You would never see that book in the U.S. It's about um, the Boer invasion of the Zulu kingdom, which is near the Lake Umhlanga Durban area, and it's an 1837 to 1840 war that happened there. It is not of interest to U.S. bookshelves for the most part, but that's fascinating to me. Very focused history. So I will continue moving to the point that I'm making. When it comes to mental health, there's a lot that we do from a research and study perspective. People look around and they ask the question of why mental health is where it's at. Why is the US struggling with loneliness? Why are teens struggling the way that they are? Is it the pandemic? Is it cell phones? Is it TikTok? Is it all this stuff? And is it what? And those are good questions. But one of the things that I believe as a clinician and a person is the best answers are the ones that answer for every context. For instance, if I am lonely and we find a solution why I'm lonely or why my country's lonely, but then there's loneliness in a different part of the world, and maybe we can't apply the same logic there. I want to think of a better example, but can we apply the same principles cross culturally? And if so, great. Ideas that can spread between different peoples, different cultures are typically important. And they can be useful or not useful ideas, but they still have an impact on the surrounding world. So, What I want to look at is, for instance, what's true about mental health in the US that would also be true about mental health in South Africa. And my argument is that if it's not true there, is it really true here? Or is it the whole truth? Does it really answer the question? Um, for instance, people say, well, we're lonely because of the internet and social media. Okay, were people lonely before the internet and social media existed? If the answer is yes, then social media and the internet are not the reason why we're lonely. Because if the problem existed before what you say is the problem, or if the symptom existed before the problem, however you want to say that, then that doesn't really answer the question. Now, that might still mean that social media and internet contribute to loneliness, but we need to figure out why. What is it doing? Is it pulling people away and separating them? That's more helpful. Have people been pulled away from community and separated before internet? Yes, they have. So then we have to ask, did that cause loneliness? Are there parts of the world that don't have internet and social media? Do they experience loneliness? I forget what tribe it is, but I think is it I forget the guy's name. It might be David Cho. I hope that's his name, but he's gone. He went to a tribe and asked while he was there about if any of them would be interested in going to the U.S. And the response he got was from one of them. He said the place where people kill themselves because they don't have that issue. No one commits suicide in that tribe. It's not a thing. And so that's really, really important because when you think about how we assess suicide, which I've talked about this before, that we assess it very poorly in the US. We try to make it a mental health diagnosis, but it's not that. Um, I will change my stance on that if I see data, but the data does not point to this being a diagnosable mental health diagnosis or issue. It is more than that. The data shows for suicidality that it is much more related to uh, what we would call self-care, like an actual sense of it, like connection to community and purpose and meaning and things like that. And that's even for the people who have it on an impulsive level where they just have a wave of this suicidality come over them. We can still see that reduced when we take care of the person as a whole. Make sure they know they're loved and have community, and make sure that they're taken care of well. That's one thing that more remote cultures do better at times is they're not in this hustle and bustle and they're not using the internet and all these things that are inputting data that's not useful to them. So um, suicidality is actually a great example to look at that cross culturally and to look at it in societies that are not modernized. And that's just one example of one society that does not deal with suicidality. So if any solution that we're making can't apply to them, then we're missing something there. Why does it? How can a place have zero suicidality? So hopefully you can get where I'm going with all this. Understanding different cultures and what's familiar and what's different and asking the deeper why questions is so important. And a lot of people in the US, when we talk about different cultures, they're usually still talking within the US. We talk about the black community versus the white community, Hispanics, Cubans. I guess you can kind of mix us Mexicans, Cubans. Um, I say that my family is from Mexico. We're not Cuban, and it's very different to me culturally. So, um, solutions just in the US, when we look at broader, you get a bigger picture when you zoom out to the right focal length. Think about taking a picture on your phone or with binoculars. There's a right distance where you get the right picture, which means zooming in to a certain depth can be harmful, and zooming out to a certain depth, I guess, can be harmful as well. If you want to see a picture of the Earth from space and you zoom out a billion light years, you're just going to see like a tiny little dot. It's not going to show you what the Earth looks like. And if you zoom in really high powered, you're just going to see where I'm at, Kansas City. So you need the right length to say, that's the Earth. I can see the shape and I can see the colors. So we have to zoom in and out properly. And to look at anything mental health and only zoom into the US we're going to miss certain things. Now, I'm sure there are things where that's all we need is just the United States focal point. And I know a lot of you listening are actually not in the US, so think about it from some of you are watching in South Africa and the UK and Australia, um, in the Middle East. I see you all in there, Canada. Think about it from your country. There are certain things that looking at the lens just through your country is helpful, just through your town. Mexico versus Guadalajara or Australia to Melbourne, and these things are maybe the focus is necessary. But maybe we need to look at the continent, all of North America, all of Europe, or just the whole world. What do we know? What is cross cultural? So, one thing is we know that family plays an important role on life. It doesn't matter if you go to the most developed country, least developed country, the most technologically advanced, a tribal society that does not have technology, the Amish community that chooses not to use it, rich families, poor families, we learn that family plays an important role. We know that. Now, the more specific details we get into, the more we have to ask different questions. But that's relevant in every society that a healthy family and a well put together family is better. Does not mean you're going to have an awful life or a good life because of that factor, but it is clearly a contributing factor to good mental health and often a good society. Go back to the suicidality piece, people are still asking questions. I think people are asking questions that we actually have answers to. Um, we do know a lot more about how to prevent and address it than people act like we do. It's because people want to make it a mental health issue, and that's not the full picture. So, but the more we can get a proper angle of this, the better. So, I got a book while I was in South Africa that I'll do a review on here, but once I finish it, about I forget the exact title. It's essentially a black South African talking about his experience growing up and how that led to him being a psychologist. I won't find that in the US on a bookshelf. I found it on a bookshelf. Every book that I bought was just on a shelf in the country. And if you've had the privilege of going to a different country, books are different because people read different things. Heck, even when I was in San Francisco, I went to a used bookstore and was surprised at the literature that they write, even fiction. I think it was Dostoevsky, the Russian author who I like. There's a couple books that you'll see here, but the used bookstore had like I couldn't believe how many were there at that specific spot in San Francisco. I'm pretty sure it was Dostoevsky, but I'm like, okay, people here are clearly reading that more than they are in Kansas City. Something about the culture there, they're reading it. So all the books that I bought were just on the bookshelf there. These are all books. I bought one book that you can get in the U.S. easy because I liked the foreign cover that they had on it. But engaging in media and experiences that are just not easily accessible in the US. And I haven't gone on to look, but some of these books are probably going to have import fees because they're not sent here at all. So, just an encouragement to, I guess in this case, look at literature, places you go, and to expand your mind a lot more when it comes to the world and what, and not in this like you have to travel to experience the world. I don't believe that. We have enough information to learn. Traveling is its own thing. Um, but when you're thinking about how to solve problems, then you're just looking at your own four walls. You're locking yourself into solutions and even to the problem. Think about your own home. If there's shouting happening at home, and you're like, I want the house to be calmer and quieter, and I don't know how to do that, and you're only using your home as reference for that, then you have no comparison to your neighbors or other homes. You might be like, what is the solution? I don't understand. And just all you have to do sometimes is just look next door and be like, oh, they're doing it well. And then maybe their home culture is very different. And applying that directly doesn't work, but you get a different perspective by just looking at your neighbor. And maybe you figure out a solution. You're like, this works great. But for the family next door, it doesn't. You're like, why doesn't it work for them? And it's because there's a deeper element of it that works for you. And you're focusing on a level that's broader that doesn't work for everyone. So, um, yeah, we need a bigger picture sometimes. And I think for most people, we're not looking at the right place, and that's because it's hard to do. It's hard to take an accurate look at what's going on around us. So, yeah, as a therapist and someone who has studied psychology, getting a book by a psychologist there is really cool and really exciting. And I'm looking forward to doing all the reading, most of which that I got was history related reading, and not entirely, but most of it, and just learning more about this country. Well, we're learning more about South Africa to be specific. Most of my national education is around the U.S. and South Africa. So yeah, so if you are from South Africa, keep in touch with this channel because it will be brought up uh, more and more. And as I say that, I see an ad for a WhatsApp uh, on a truck. They use that a lot there. So fantastic timing on that. That's a weird truck, dude. It's got a basketball goal on the front of it. Oh, and the back. Okay. Anyway, fantastic timing there. That's used everywhere, that app. So, digressing, it's time for me to shut this down. But open your eyes to different parts of the world when you're looking for solutions, especially when it comes to mental health. Don't just think about what do we need to do in the US. Think about what mental health looks like all over the world, because the answers that work cross culturally and across people, that is often a better answer. And we need to understand those things to apply them. And the way to do that is to partner with and connect to and engage with more psychologists and therapists in different parts of the world, not just within your own country and state and city, but expanding that further. So that is that. Happy Monday. If you're interested in therapy services, as always, reach out to me. In the description is my contact info. I'll get you situated with a therapist as best I can, potentially myself. And yeah, if you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, share it. It helps me out. We're close to 100 subscribers. I'm trying to think of something a little over the top to do for 100, which is, I know, not a huge deal, but I'm going to have fun with the 100 subscriber video. I only need 2 more as time of recording. So if you see this and you're not subscribed and you want that 100 subscriber video, go ahead and subscribe. That's fun. Do it. All right. I'll see y'all soon.